But they're
maybe
making
not.
it less likely for one person to ride the wave, right?
Yeah,
Maybe. Hello
maybe.
there.
Ripe the wade.
Right the
Okay.
Yeah.
wave. Yeah. All right. Got to write that time down. Hey everybody, welcome to Lions Pride Tavern podcast number 63. Tonight we find out how we did in last weekend's raid, and was there really a reason for the WoW server going down on Fridays? But before all that, let's start off with introductions. I'm your host, Stafford. I play a Dwarven Beastmaster Hunter in the awesome game World of Warcraft. Next up is JobUi.
Hi, I'm JobUi. I play a Worgen Frost Mage.
And Lorelei.
Hi, it's Lorelei, your Night Elf Fairy Warrior.
Epistle.
I play Epistle ×2, a Draenei Protection Pally and a Dwarven Protection Pally.
Awesome. And Tapachino is on hiatus until after the holidays. So we're going to see if we can find one of our other raid healers to kind of fill her place. But we didn't get that done tonight, so it's just going to be the four of us. So how are you guys this week?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
I got, I feel pretty good about, my gear for fire spec this week. I got some nice gear that is totally useless to my frost spec, but it's looking pretty good for my future fire spec. So, yeah, feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen your frost spec come out yet. Or your your fire spec come out yet.
No, I haven't played with it in the raid yet. I'm just about I'm on the cusp of finishing up my 75th rank on my frost weapon. I'll have that tomorrow. I need another 29 billion AP to finish that up. Well,
that ain't much.
No, that's actually, it's not that much. It's one day of doing all the world quests that give artifact power for me. That's roughly, 30 to 50 billion is what I usually end up with from doing all the world quests that are available. So that's one day there. And then after that, all my artifact power is going to be dumped into my fire spec, which is quite a bit behind. I think it's at 64 or something like that. So it's kind of back there. But yeah, I mean, I got these 955 gloves with a socket. I got a 940 neck piece last night. That's I think it's something like a 20% upgrade for my fire spec or something like that. I've got some great looking gear for my fire spec. I just I'm not using it currently.
Sounds like you're describing Christmas. So is 75 tapped out? Is that the top, or is
No.
there still more to go? Oh, okay.
100 is top, from what I understand. Rank 100 on your weapon is top. Rank 75 is when you have all three of your relics up to level 3. So you can go 333 on your relics from the Nether Shard Crucible. So that's where I'm trying to get that to. I figure that's kind of the goal point. You get your weapon to that point, and then everything else after that is just fluff.
Right. So small little improvements, but not necessarily big changes.
Right. It's just all you get after that is just the 300 or whatever it is, versatility or crit or whatever bonus it is that you get for your particular class and spec for each rank that you get above that. So there's no new ranks to unlock for your relic or anything along those lines.
Yeah, so it's not nothing, but it's not really a huge boost.
Right.
Oh, I'll do a little movie plug. If you haven't seen Justice League yet, it's worth watching.
Oh. I was a little bit hesitant of that one, actually.
I know, but they got Josh Whedon in to work on it when the other director walked off, and he was working on the DC movies, and he does a really great job. So it definitely is a movie worth watching.
Yeah, Josh Whedon's fantastic. But you've already seen it, and it's good, huh?
Oh, I saw it today. We went out today and saw it.
Yeah, like I said, I was a little hesitant too. So, like
The
JoeBuoy.
previews looked a little weird to me.
I mean, Wonder Woman was great. Don't get me wrong, but I can't see the guy.
Flash is really good. I love the way they did Flash.
Did they use the actor from the TV show as the actor in the movie?
No, but
Okay.
From what I understand, because I haven't watched Flash on Netflix, he was in one of the shows as somebody, but
Oh, okay.
he's really good.
You know, the other I saw a preview for a movie that the superhero style movie that I'm super excited about seeing coming up, which would be The Incredibles 2.
Oh, they're redoing that one again?
Yeah,
The
I love that
Incredibles
show.
2. Yeah,
I'll go see that.
The preview for it is mostly the baby Jack.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like
Jack.
starts off, yeah, and he's got like green laser beams shooting out of his eyeballs, and he's like running around laughing and giggling, and his dad comes in and he's like, "You have powers," and then the baby like sneezes and like there's like fire and electricity and laser beams that like burns a hole in his hair, you know, like through the middle of his hair. It's pretty funny, even though it's short. But I thought The Incredibles was the first one was a great movie. So
Oh yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
love
excited to
I
see
love
the
it when
next
he's
one.
in the train yard, benching train cars,
Yeah.
trying to
you know,
work
like
out.
the whole like, you know, like I think it was at the beginning of the first one, which was the baby, or maybe it was an animated short I watched that was Jack and the Babysitter.
That was
I
a
don't know
short, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was an animated short by Pixar. That was fantastic, you know, and I really like The Incredibles.
Yeah, because that was the same babysitter that the kids made watch Jack while they went to the island.
Right.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're getting way off topic because that's got nothing
Sure.
to do with World of Warcraft.
No.
But it's a good topic. So, JoeBuoy, why don't you cap us off and tell us how we did this weekend after Friday night's debacle?
Right. Well, you know, Friday night started really slow, like 45 minutes slow, or so, because the WoW authentication servers were not letting people in, so we couldn't log into the servers for quite a while. Finally, we got in there with about an hour and 15 minutes left on the clock for our raid night, and we did very well for that. The boss fights themselves, we didn't have any wipes. We got through them. The mechanics were pretty sloppy in most of those fights, but we still got through them. And we made it all the way to we made it through Sisters of the Moon. So second night we came back and we went on to Desolate Host, and we had some hiccups in Desolate Host for quite a while, but then just after break, we got through Desolate Host and moved on to, or maybe it was just, yeah, I think it was
That's right.
just after break we got through it, and then we went on to Maiden, and that's where we spent the rest of the evening, was wiping on Maiden.
Oh, I think you're right because we got Desolate Host down, then we took a break.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that right? Is
Yeah,
that right?
that's what we did. Yeah, we
Was
didn't take a
just
break
before?
until after. Yeah,
Oh, right, because you were like, hey, let's trade loot and then go on from there
then went
after
into Maiden.
break, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it was still pretty good. We had the polls were getting better and better on Maiden.
Yes.
Over it wasn't like things were just cascading failure downhill. People were starting to, you know, be on their toes a little bit more. There was quite a few, you know, like we just said wipe it up because 3, 4, 5 people died in the first 30 seconds to a minute of the fight, and there's why even try and recover from that? Just start over, and it doesn't take that long to start over and get it clean. And then but then we moved on. You know, we had some really good pulls. I think we got it down to what, like 10 or 15% on one of them, or something like that. Pretty close.
Yeah,
I
10
don't know.
point something.
Was it down that low? I wasn't.
Yeah,
sure.
it was.
Yeah, very cool. Well,
Now, with next week is our last one on that. There was
Yep.
some discussion after the raid by some people wondering if we were going to extend the lockout. But I told them I didn't think so, because I mean it is our last week in that raid, and I'd rather not spend the whole night wiping on a boss to get past that one boss. I'd rather like us have a chance for gear personally, like
Yeah.
throughout the other fights.
Yeah, and
If
that's probably when the new one starts, we'll just jump into it. I mean, that's what we've done in the past. I mean, I could save the lockout for a week if I wanted to, but I doubt if we'd go back and finish it off.
No, I think it's our last week. Um, I have a feeling that if we have a good makeup of players show up for it, and it is a holiday weekend, so it's hard to say who's going to show up. But if we have a good makeup of players, I don't see us having any trouble getting through Desolate Host on our first night, as long as the servers are cooperating.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So I made the comment, I thought, because I went to the Twitter page for Blizzard, and it said that their authentication servers are down. But right before that, they had a free weekend of, what's that dumb game? Overwatch. I know we're going to get shit for that one. But
Yeah,
they
you
had
are.
a free weekend for Xbox and PS4. And it was at the same time that they released, okay, here's the free weekend, that the authentication servers went down. Now, Donabelle said, well, they've had free weekends before, so that might not have been it. Jobui, you kind of thought it was a DDoS attack, but
Possibly, yeah.
they didn't say anything about it. And what they're really bad at is not telling you what it was. They just tell you, okay, it's fixed,
Right. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't think it was Overwatch. I think that was happenstance, maybe.
Well, but you think about it. Blizzard's got this reputation of when they launch something, they don't expect, 2 billion people to jump on the server at that exact time. They've done that in several expansions. Granted, the last couple expansions, they got that smoothed out.
But like I said, but the authentication servers weren't down for all their games though. It was just for WoW, because like I was able to log into StarCraft, and I think someone else was able to log into Overwatch while we were waiting for the WoW servers to come back up, or the WoW authentication.
Yeah, but do they use this? Do they use just one authentication server for all those
No.
games, or?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So,
The WoW
who
servers,
knows?
the WoW authentication servers are like separate machines, from what I understand. Like they have their own authentication servers for the different games. I think.
But I do know as a business though, if you've got authentication servers that are working and WoW's popularity, I'm sorry, has been dropping off of late. It's not, drastic, but it has been dropping. Why wouldn't you use, for the other game, why wouldn't you use the authentication servers that are there that don't have a lot of traffic? I don't know. I'm just guessing, but that's my feeling, is that it had something to do with Overwatch.
Could be.
No matter which it was annoying.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was.
for sure.
Because I had been in the game and then didn't know anything was going on. Otherwise, I'd have just stayed where I was.
Yeah, because there were people that had been in prior to it happening and stayed in the whole time. It was just getting in. That's why I think it really had something to do with it, because they announced, here's our free weekend. And then at the same time, or just shortly thereafter, their authentication servers go down. So they're giving permission for all these people to come in, and then bang. So we'll never know.
Yeah.
Kind of like getting to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop. You never know how many licks it's going to take.
I got curious there while we were talking about that, about what is, how has the trend gone for population in WoW?
Uh-huh.
And really, like there was a big spike during Wrath of the Lich King where it got really pretty high. It was somewhere in the vicinity of like a little less than 12.5 million subscribers around the time of Wrath of the Lich King. In Cataclysm, it gradually like ebbed off, and then Mist of Pandaria, it ebbed off even further, getting all the way down to somewhere around like just under like maybe close to 7 million subscribers globally, and then during Warlords of Draenor, it apparently jumped up to like 10 million again. But I don't have all the data for like the current WoW subscribers, but it's kind of interesting that it jumped up so much with Warlords of Draenor.
See, now the math is going off in my head. 7 million subscribers at $15 a month. I would do this game for 7 million subscribers for $1 a month.
Yeah,
A month. 7 million a month. You don't think you can run your business off $7 million a month? Come on.
Blizzard's, I don't know, man. Blizzard's server farm has got to be pretty massive. But I do know that at one point I had heard that Blizzard has like makes more money than many small countries do on their
Yeah.
GDP.
And they don't and they don't want you to think about that. I don't think they want that popularity on how much they are making. I mean, granted, they have to pay their artists, and they're good artists because, I mean, look at the quality of the game. They have to pay for content, so they got great story writers. Look at BlizzCon, how much they invest in BlizzCon.
That's, God, I didn't even think how much that costs.
What's a ticket run for BlizzCon? $100?
Oh, I don't know. I've never gone to go.
Oh, I thought you bought the
I do the virtual ticket, which is what, $35?
Oh, okay. I thought it was more than that.
No.
Well, we'll have to get Charity on here on the podcast because she actually went to BlizzCon and met up with Dex and Mac with a Goblin Goldcast. So I bet you there's some stories there that Mrs. Mac doesn't know about.
Well, there was something on their latest podcast about a plane, Mac and the plane. So we'll have to get him to tell that story.
Yeah. Well, getting him on here is really tough because he works when we're doing this live, so he just can't get at the same time frame unless we wanted to do it later. And I'm like, yeah, we ain't gonna do that because I got East Coast people that would be like 1 o'clock in the morning for them.
No.
Wouldn't quite work.
Yeah, no, not at all. So let's talk a little bit about the last boss. Let's talk about Maiden of Vigilance. We did progress really well. I was impressed. The one time, it was funny. The one time JoBui had just mentioned that we lost 2 people within the first 30 seconds. I was one of them, and I want to explain how that happened. So I'm on the fell side, and the switch goes over, and I got to run over to the light side. Well, one of the people on the fell side ran over to the light side and made everybody jump in. And what is the first thing that happens on the light side? Right after you switch? The hammer of demolition, destruction, smashing.
Hammer of you die now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And so I come around the corner and I stand there and everybody jumps off into the pit and I'm by myself. And the damn hammer comes down. So
yeah, you were standing on the edge where he was going to soak that because I believe Durag was going to soak it because the tank was jumping in and the pistol was jumping in at that time.
Yeah.
So
I had no idea.
You stood behind Durag, and so it was just you and Durag soaking it.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't have that armor.
Yeah.
I went splat.
I'm not
I
sure
don't know
that
who
it
the other
killed
person
him,
was.
but it might have come close too because that's a colossal hit to take.
Yeah, the
for
other
a tank.
One of the things that got me a couple of times, well, not killed me, but kind of like, spooked me, I guess, a little bit about the mechanics was, one of the paladins, Spicy, was standing in the group and had the bomb, and I'm like, take your bomb out, get your bomb out. What are you doing? Little did I know he was going to bubble it, but I didn't know that the way the way it works for a paladin, if they're going to bubble it when they get the bomb, is they bubble and then like just before it goes off or something, or a little bit before it goes off, and then it just continues to count down. It doesn't make it go away. So it just looks like they're going to explode in the group, and then it just pops, but it doesn't actually do any damage to anyone, and it doesn't damage them because they bubbled it or whatever. It looks like they're about to just blow everybody up with their bomb. So it kind of like weirded me out until he told me like how that was working for them. Because as a mage, if I ice block it, it just goes away immediately. But that doesn't happen with the paladins.
I totally
That's
just
bizarre.
envisioned the gal from Marvel that has the psychic abilities and her brother is really fast. And when in Civil War, when the guy's gonna blow up and she encases him in a bubble and he starts blowing
Right?
up inside the bubble, I totally see that with the paladin going. Psst.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
And I
Scarlet
had my
Witch. We're back to the movies again.
Yep.
yeah, I had one. My first mess up on grabbing the colored balls, moving from one side to the other this week. I
And
did.
he admitted it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I was covering a double line, and there was one other person up there with me at the time, and I thought he was going for one as well, and I think he touched the same ball I did, or one nearby, because I was a little bit more than 3 yards away from him when I bumped into one of the. I was on the fell side, and I bumped into one of the yellow ones while going for a fell one, 2 lanes over. Um, but because all the rest of them were yellow on the first 2 lanes, so I was swapping over to the outside lanes. But yeah, I did have one mess up.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
Well,
seriously.
raid-wide, though, we had a lot of mess-ups. I started just to pay attention to how many we should get versus how many we actually get. Every time we do one of those switches, there's 4 or 5 people who are having trouble on the way over or when they get there, so people are not really avoiding that damage.
Well,
yeah,
I watched a lot of people not running on the line. So maybe we
Yep.
just need to reiterate, when you're running over there, run on the line. Maybe they forgot that part of the mechanic. I don't know. It gets really frustrating. This is the one that we had the JoBui alarm go off on.
yeah.
Because it's one of those very frustrating mechanics. Now, JoBui, why don't you tell us what you found out, what they're going to do in the future expansions?
Well, in one of the there was a little Q&A that I saw that Blizzard had posted to the launcher the other day, um, and he was talking about in the next expansion they wanted to change up how they were going to do what they call like raid wipe or killer mechanics, which essentially is like if one person screws up, it kills everybody. And in this expansion, especially in this raid in particular, there are a number of bosses where that's the case. Where if one person screw ups, it can easily wipe the whole raid. If you miss one of the Armageddons on Kill Jaden, it can wipe the raid. If you screw up on almost anything in Maiden, you can wipe the raid. It's just like that on a number of them. And they said they were going to try and reduce that down so that there are less like raid wiping mechanics where as one individual causes everybody to die. So hopefully and I don't know exactly how they're going to do that. I've heard that it's going to be more like if one player screws up a mechanic, it's likely to kill that one player, but not likely to kill everybody that's anywhere near that one player. Kind of thing. So that I like that. They said there's still going to be some of those kind of mechanics, but less of them. So that should be kind of nice.
So this
As a
is where I
tank,
want
though, I
to.
like those mechanics.
I was going to say this
You
is where I
like
want to
those?
take the discussion. So let's talk about that, whether we like this or not, because to me, I mean, I finally got to the point where, yes, the last 3 bosses in this raid, if one person screws up, it wipes the raid. Now that's frustrating, but it's also extremely fun because when you do get it, it is a huge, huge sense of accomplishment. But on the flip side, you know, what's the age bracket of the people that play WoW? If they're not capable of playing as a team, and I've said this before, I've watched my son when he was younger play with him and his friends, and they're playing some game, and I'll be playing with them, and they're always like, all right, this is what we're going to do. A team, you're going over this way. B team, we're going this way. And ready, 3, 2, 1, go. And then as soon as we hit go, everybody runs off in their own freaking direction. There's no teamwork, where this forces you to be a team player. And if you're not, if you're one of those solo people that, I can do this, and I've had those in my raid, I've had those people, it really forces you to be a team player. And I like that because then when you do get it down, you realize everybody came together. But if they're going to dumb it down for the 12-year-olds, I get that too. So let's start the discussion off. Where are you at on this, Epistle, since you were going to jump in there?
Yeah. Well, the thing about the difficulties of raids is that for tanks, it's always been challenging. For healers, it's always been, emergency heals, try to keep people alive. That's where some of the excitement comes there. But for DPS, having done lots of DPS, lots of tanking through the years, uh, it's been that you have to be on your game as a tank. You have to be situationally aware. You have to understand the mechanics. You've got to know what's going on. DPS can be somewhat lazy. They can come in and they can coast. They can hear one or two mechanics to pay attention to that might kill them, and then otherwise they're just sort of trying to crank out the big numbers. So then, as you say, there's no real team effort, no real sense of people having to work together, coordinate their movement, coordinate when they're attacking, switching from ads to boss and back again. Or clicking something or doing some other kind of activity in the fight to keep it interesting. So that's been so much the domain of tanks at in the normal or heroic or mythic levels, and now that's been pushed down towards the DPS more. It just feels to me like it evens it out for people who are for playing, so that it's not all leaning on the tanks inordinately high on them. It becomes something that everybody needs to work on. And if you want it easy, well, you can do LFR. That's fine, or for that matter, even normal. But if you want something interesting and a challenge, that's heroic. I would also argue that as a group, we've been doing more heroics now than we have in the past, and so we are being increasingly challenged. And I think that's a fine thing.
Yeah. Okay. Lorelei, what do you think?
I agree with what Epistle said. Raids were always something that guilds did because you had the people in your group, you could all get trained, you all had to learn to work together. And then when LFR came along, you didn't have to do that anymore. You could just run in there and go crazy and get a boss down and get some gear. And I think if they change the mechanics just because people aren't learning it, then it kind of cheats everybody who's really putting in the time and effort to learn the teamwork and the working together, and it takes the fun out of it for me too. So I've never been a big fan of LFR. I understand why they put it in there, but I feel like now we're just going to end up doing guild LFR because people aren't taking the responsibility to learn what to do.
Okay. All right. Jobui?
I totally see where you guys are coming from on that, but I don't think it's going to that extreme. Um, I I think what their approach is that they're looking towards is really just that there are some mechanics where, I mean, you can get three-quarters of the way through the fight, and it's like there's no room for any error, which I understand on some fights that can make it pretty exciting that there's no room for any error. But when you're talking about, 30 people that are doing this dance, and if one of them has one tiny little misstep, how it can just, that's it, you lose. The whole group loses because one person stepped out of line in one spot for 1 second. Like they just weren't quite perfect. And I get that, the team dynamic and having to work together. I don't think that's going away. I don't think that that's going to stop. I think there will just be, mechanics where it's just not as maybe not as like raid wide consequential as it is individually consequential. Because nobody wants to die in the raid. I mean, everybody wants to stay alive and keep doing their DPS or their heals, or obviously the tanks kind of have to stay alive. But it's I just don't think it's going to go quite to the extreme where it's just dumbed down to the point of LFR. In fact, they talked a little bit. I saw that they talked a little bit about how, some of the mythic raids at the beginning of the expansion, or when raids first come out, they're gonna be super hard, and then over time, as you approach the end of the raid cycle, they'll get nerfed a little bit here and there, because there's going to be those raid groups that are like, super ultra serious, who are putting together groups that you have to bring this class in spec and you have to do this and that, blah blah blah, to get through the content because it's super super hard. That they're going for these world firsts, but then over time, they kind of take out, or they make it a little bit easier, so that those middle of the road raiding groups, those groups that are a little less serious, kind of like ours, is they're still want to win, but they're maybe not all pro, kind of thing, can then get through the content too. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm not really not. And also, from a person who calls the fights, um, I get pretty sick of having to repeat myself on people explaining mechanics to people over and over and over and over again when they just can't seem to get it. And it's really, really frustrating as somebody who calls the fights or who explains mechanics, telling people, 50 times to take your bomb into the middle, right at the tail end. That gets annoying.
It does. But, I mean, is it worth dumbing it down to where it won't be that bad when they don't? Because then it's just going to make that, in my opinion, this is just solely my opinion, I think it's going to make it to where we're going to go back to where we have the groups of people that do the special mechanics and everybody else who just skates along. I mean, it's bad enough, and Epistle kind of hit on it. It's really important to keep the tanks up so the healers concentrate on the tanks. So really, the two most important classes of the three are tanks and healers. And then there's DPS. Now, DPS is important because that's where the majority of the damage comes in. But if a tank goes down or a healer goes down, I mean, look at what we use for battle reses. When we save our battle reses for tanks and healers, there's only a couple of fights where we go, ooh, let's use the battle res right off the bat and not even have any to get that DPS up because we need the long-term DPS. There's very few of those fights. The majority of them are tanks and healers.
Yeah, but you're also talking about numbers too there, because I mean, there's 2 tanks. I can't remember. It's been ages before I've heard of anybody bringing 3 tanks to a raid. So there's 2 tanks, and there's really only a few healers. There's like 1 healer for every 5 players in the raid, roughly. Is a general equation for it. Whereas there's a massive DPS. So, like if you lose 1 tank, there's only 2 tanks, and the tanks often have mechanics that they have to swap back and forth, so you absolutely have to have them up. And then healers, you might be able to lose a healer, or maybe even 2 healers, but if you lose 3 healers, then you might start getting into trouble because there's just not enough heals to go out for everybody. That's why there's a little bit of extra wiggle room, I think, for the DPS, because in a general group, you're talking, if you've got 25 players, right? You've got 2 tanks, and let's say you do 1 healer per 5 players in the group, so you got 5 healers. Well, then you're looking at what was that, like 18 of the players are going to be DPS. So that's a pretty good amount.
Yeah, I'm not belittling DPS. I'm just saying, of the important classes, you got tanks and you got healers. Because without healers, nobody stays alive, and without tanks, we don't keep the boss's attention, and we wipe. We wipe. Because I've never heard of anybody going in with all DPS and healers and taking a boss down.
No.
Yeah, and you always wait if you have one at the end and you just need that little bit. Yeah, I mean, I never expect to get a res, because you gotta save them.
Right. Well, and granted, if you're, like I said, I mean, depending on the situation, and boy, sometimes that's just on the fly, knowing who's the top DPS at the moment to get them up. I try to look at our logs every week to see who's in the highest, DPS percentage, and make sure I remember those names. So if I can glance over and see that, JobUi's down, I know that in the last poll of our fight, he was the 4th highest DPS. So he should come up, I mean, he's doing 905k DPS, and the only ones above him are Spicy, Unholy Knight, and Dizzy. So you just gotta, but when a tank goes down, like when Epistle went down, he actually, what happened to you? You got booted off the edge, or you went to jump off the edge and then it never got back up?
Which fight was this? Because there was a few funky things.
On Maiden, I thought you said that you went to jump in the pit and your bomb went off, but it didn't throw you up. You just or it just disappeared. Or was that you?
Yeah, I was just started the falling and then saw the boom and didn't see a change in my vector. That wasn't so good.
And you fell right to the bottom.
And
So,
I'm like, yeah,
but
I'm still going down.
and that's an eerie feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, because at
It's
that
happened
point
to me a couple of times.
that whole pull is now not happening.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is that, Epistle's gone. Now, we could have had, Lorelei step up and do a taunt every once in a while, or one of our other, paladins, but they're not going to last because they're not geared for tanking. I don't know. They're important roles to have, and DPS, in my opinion, as a DPS, I don't think my role is as important as a tank's role or a healer's role. When I play my healer, I seem to concentrate a lot more, not necessarily on the mechanics. I can be just as guilty being narrow-minded. I concentrate a lot on the tanks and how everybody else is doing, but I heal with a druid, so they don't have a lot of those instant whammy heals. They're a lot of over time heals, so you got to kind of pre-look at him. If you start seeing, Formir starts taking a lot of damage, you got to start throwing a bunch of heals his way, otherwise he ain't gonna live.
But
Sure.
see, at this point, the way I'm seeing it though is, should a healer or a DPS, when they miss the mechanic, wipe the raid or cause a major setback to the raid? That to me feels like the key question we're discussing. And to answer that, I would say yes. I think it should be, rather than just individually paying the consequences. I think the group should, at the heroic or mythic level. Definitely, I think the group has to live with the consequences of having the weakest player not doing the mechanics.
And I don't think that's going away. They said that they
Yeah,
planned
I'm
on
hearing you
toning
say
it
that.
down.
Yeah.
They're just, because if you look at these last three fights, I mean, I think this is the first time we've seen so many of those mechanics being thrown in at one time. On these three fights, where it's to the point where literally, if, where just it can. It's just, if you see like the one person, and it doesn't have to even be the same person. It's just this person messes it up on this pull, and that person messes it up on the next pull, and this person messes it up on the next one, and eventually you're just like, good gravy.
It's just not happening. Yep.
Yeah, well, but we've seen Blizzard do this in the past. From vanilla, I've talked about this where Red Ridge, you had a tower that you could not get past this quest line until you got a group of 3 players together that would group together to defeat that guy. And he wasn't even a boss. But they do away with that because the WoW community goes, well, I can't group with anybody. Well, that's because you're, not a nice person, or you got a bad attitude or whatever it is that people aren't grouping with you. But so what do? They go and complain to Blizzard, and Blizzard changes it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that necessarily. I think they didn't put it that way when they were talking about it. They said that they were looking at their data, and seeing what was happening to raids and that sort of thing, and that they decided that it was a better way to go, and what they did. It really didn't seem like they weren't saying, well, there was all these complaints in the forums. They never even talked about player opinion when they were discussing how they wanted to redesign the way these mechanics were supposed to work. So, I mean, it may seem controversial, but and I've heard that this particular topic come up. The whole, are they making it too easy? Are they dumbing it down? I've heard that every expansion. There's been the cries of, they're ruining the game. They were making it too easy. It's no fun to play anymore. I still love it. I still enjoy the game a ton, despite all the cries of it's too easy. Okay, it's too easy. Well, if it's too easy, then why aren't we blasting through Mythic? It's hard. That's why.
Well, that's because they've got levels of play in there for people that are like that. But the whole game itself is, in my opinion, is being dumbed down, and then they have levels that you could achieve beyond that. Because look how fast we blow through going from 100 to 110 to get ready for raiding, where there's people out there that's all they can do. And it takes them, 6 months to go from 100 to 110 because, they're out there and they're not as experienced players as we are.
It's
Sure.
how they roll.
Low and slow.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, and I guess we need to know more about why they decided to do it.
And regardless
Because
of all that, we still have to figure out how we as a team get better at what we do, right? How we work better together and coordinate raid mechanics better.
yeah, because I mean the last 3 fights, I mean, I'm going to say out of the last 3 fights, the hardest one is uh kill Jaden. But I mean, they're doable. And it really just comes down, like we always keep saying to people, you've got to come in here knowing what to do. And at this point, we've done all these fights enough that everybody should know what to do.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I can't, I can't even count how many times I've hammered home to people that they really have to learn the mechanics, and that they just need to practice them. And even telling them, like, I don't care what their numbers are, because I honestly really don't when it comes to like how good their DPS is. Like, I don't care if they're parsing like 75, 80%, 90% of people in their class. I don't care. If they're doing 40, 50%, if they're pulling their weight on that boss, if they're taking off as much health as they're putting on the boss when they come into the raid, I really don't care, kind of thing, and what their DPS is. I just want them to do the mechanics and do them well. And so we can progress to the next boss. Because there I don't even know if there is a boss that I think there was like a little bit on, was it Sisters of the Moon, that for a little bit there we were not quite getting the DPS we needed on the bubble for like 1 or 2 weeks or something. But other than that, there is no real DPS check in this entire raid. It's just do the mechanics, do them well, and you win.
As a team.
But
As a
yeah,
team, yeah. And that's what it comes down to, is if you're going to say, well, we have a raid team, then we need to have a raid team, and we need to have everybody thinking in that mentality that here's my job, here's what I have to do, I have to be paying attention, and it actually becomes easy. I mean, the heroic fight on Desolate Host, it's hard when you first do it because you can't really quite see what's going on, but then when you get it down, it's really not that hard.
no. In fact, I think that fight's one of the easier fights in the whole raid, actually. Aside from Goroth, but even Goroth can be a little harder, I think, depending on how much people are paying attention. But when we were talking about like the responsibilities of the individual players, healers have to keep the tanks up, and tanks have to absorb the damage and make sure they don't, make sure they're mitigating damage and that sort of thing. In my opinion, as the way I've always seen my role as a DPS is, it's my job to really pay attention to the mechanics and to try and get as much damage going out as I can, right? But it's always pay attention to mechanics, and I've always felt that's part of my role as a DPS. Is I've got to handle that crap that the healers don't have time to concentrate on because they're trying to keep the tanks up, or they're trying to keep me up for that matter. So I've got to go stand in this garbage over here, and I've got to go pick up this thing and take it over there, and the whole time I need to be going pew pew pew, and I've always felt that's my role. And not all DPS feel that way. I know what Epistle was saying, where some of them just come in and they want to skate through, but I think a lot of that just comes down to the individual player and how they view their position in the raid. And maybe they just see themselves as just along for the ride, or maybe they see themselves as I'm here to do a part of this team. I'm here to help the team win, kind of thing.
Well, I got 2 pieces of good news. Well, okay, yeah, they're good news. So first of all, Lilith Alou, she made a comment. Grats on Desolate Host kill. We finally are able to get him down in our guild too. Maiden, we spent most of our time of our second day on the raid, and at the end with like 10 minutes left, they finally got her down. And she makes, and this is why I brought this up, she makes the comment, and this had nothing to do with the reason I asked this. definitely more ways for one person to kill everyone on this boss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So they're having the same issues. So that's good to hear. I mean, good not. It's not good to hear that it happens, but I'm sure she'll be excited to hear what you had to say, Jobui, that they might be dumbing it down a little bit. But yeah.
I don't like that term. I don't like that. Oh, it's dumbing it down. No, they're just changing the way it's going to work. I don't think that dumbs it down. I think that's just gonna
But they're
maybe
making
not.
it less likely for one person to wipe the raid. No, I get
Just
it.
playing with the configuration, and one could argue that this boss is just, if there was a slanted more towards and slanted less towards one individual killing the raid, this has got to be the boss that's the slanted towards individuals wiping the raid.
Oh, wait till you get Fallen Avatar.
Oh, there's a lovely thought.
Oh, God, yeah, there's a horrible, horrible, horrible new mechanic in that one.
Oh, and the heroic one.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked because I didn't think
Well,
we're
when
gonna
you
get past
fall
me.
down into the pit, then you have tornadoes coming at you.
Wait, like on Mistress Sazine?
No, Fallen Avatar, where
I know,
you
but
fall down and
Oh, wait.
you're on the island of lava.
Yeah, I
Well,
do
while
remember
you're
seeing
trying
those.
to do all that, then you have multiple tornadoes coming at you,
Yeah,
just to keep you on your toes,
yeah. Well,
Just a little bit
just
outside.
to spice it up a little bit. There's
So-
also a new mechanic at the top, which is going to be interesting.
so I'm really looking forward to the next raid that comes out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, this really is our last shot at it, right where we're getting set up for.
Yeah. I really am. I am super looking forward to that raid. It comes out on the 28th, so for normal and heroic, and then a week later for mythic.
And I love the way Jobui announced it too. He's like, okay, after this next weekend, we got a new raid, and I'm not explaining any of the fights. And we're all like,
Yay!
yeah, right.
No, I'm really not. I'm just. I seriously am not. Like, I'm gonna get in there. The only thing I'm planning on telling folks is like, okay, mechanic X we're gonna take to square. Mechanic this we're gonna do this with. We're gonna go to that spot. I just want to tell them where, if there's a mechanic that needs to be taken to a certain spot, or we're just if we have to divide up people into groups or something to handle a particular mechanic or something like that. Maybe let people know which groups they're in, type of thing. But I'm really pushing for people to be self-starting and responsible to go watch the videos and learn the fights before they show up. I really think that's important for the raid group.
I think it's important too, and I think we all agree that it's important. But we don't live in a perfect world, and realistically, I think it's just going to frustrate the hell out of us because there's going to be those people that aren't going to go do it. They're going to go, well, I've been busy at work, or I don't want to sound degrading about it because it's not. I mean, I get it, but I'm going to save this soundbite for when we come back and say, yeah, so Jobui, are you explaining the fights? He's like, yep, I'm explaining the fights again.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just not gonna do it. Like, if I'm serious, like if they start, if we show up there and there are people who just were like, yeah, whatever. I don't need to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes out of my week to watch this video and learn the fight, but I want to come to the raid and I'm just gonna come in here and not know the mechanics and expect other people to tell me what they are. That person's going to kill themselves or kill others, and we're going to wipe. And if somebody else wants to tell them, because my answer is going to be, you need to watch the video for next week. And that's going to be my answer every time.
We need like a raid referee who has a whistle and calls people out for, being offside and taking the goop into the tanking circle.
Well, and I've talked about that before. I mean, Jobui does a lot of research. It's fantastic he does this. But I think at times, by overdoing it like that, it allows people to be lazier. Where I think there was one weekend, you were sick, and I just went, okay, let's start the raid. And everybody's like, oh, okay. And we just started, and we wiped, and we came back, and I said, go ahead and pull. I didn't say a word. And we got them down. We had our issues. but I think less information is sometimes better, but not when you first start out. I mean, we've been through these fights. Yeah, I agree with you, JoeBuoy. If we're going from normal to heroic, explain the difference. All the other mechanics are the same. That's all you should have to say about it. And if we keep wiping on that mechanic, you can just say, well, there isn't any difference between this and the last time we did it. So
Right.
what's the issue? You know, get it together.
Yeah, well,
But
sure.
you know, I mean, granted, I get it. You know, we do have a lot of new players, or every once in a while somebody new comes in, or somebody leaves us for a while and then joins us back up. And I can't say they're always the ones doing it because I really don't care. I don't pay attention to who's doing what. I mean, if I know who it is, fine, you know, and I may whisper him and say, you do realize that you're the one that ran the green fell over to the white side, Tapachino? Because she did it.
I yelled at
watched
her,
do
and
it,
she turned around and ran back.
I watched her do it.
I saw her coming, and I was like, no, turn around, go back. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I watched 3 people on my side all run into the wrong color on Maiden, and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, and I get your frustration, JoeBuoy. I really do, because I get tired. You get tired of saying it. I get tired of hearing you say it, because it shouldn't have to be said more than 15 times.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to be said more than twice. But hey, I'll give him 15.
Right. I did accidentally. I admit, but one time on that, I hit like 3 people on the other side because I was doing my thing and I bumped my blink button and blinked right straight through the boss over to the other side, the other color side. But I was off to the right a little bit, so I only caught a couple of people there. But I did hit a couple people by just a sheer like bad finger placement on my keyboard. You know, I was like, oh crap.
Oh yeah, and it totally happens. I've hit my disengage by accident and like, whoa, how did I get blown back? Oh, I didn't get blown back.
Yeah.
Well, I did, but that was my own fault.
And the thing is I think that by, I think that by putting it out there, like, I mean, it's 2 weeks before we start that raid, and I put up the document with videos and I linked to them, in on there for people to find them easy, and gave them some ideas where they can look the stuff up and all that. And I think that, that's more eyes on the problem too. That's more people looking at the fight and getting engaged with it. And then like they're not just waiting to hear what the call is going to be or whatever. They're gonna get active with it and they're gonna start putting more effort in. I think that would also lend itself well to the team dynamic as a whole. As far as like getting people more involved in what they're doing, not just showing up to kill bosses and get loot.
Yep.
And joke.
And something that I think's been something that's been really good lately is I think the healers, we should probably call them on something good here, right? They've really worked together in coordinating and figuring out how they're going to sequence, cooldowns, all kinds of things like that. You just get a sense that they're talking a lot more amongst each other and actually getting better.
They are. And it was funny because they had a healer with them that doesn't heal with them all the time. And he was like, well, let's just do this. And they're like, no, we're doing it like we normally do. We're doing it this way.
It's like, alphabetical. That's our system. And actually, I think it was great, right? Because it's like, yep, we know what we're doing and we know how we're going to do it. And okay, that's good feedback. I mean, I think the underlying suggestion there, which is a good one, was let's use our iron bark on our tanks because we've got so many druid healers, right? And so rotating those through, especially on the huge damage elements, normally the tanks mitigate it, but that extra little bonus will save our bacon a few times that might not otherwise. But yeah, so they work together really well as a team now, and increasingly so. I wonder if there's a benefit for building that kind of capacity with our DPS, our melee, and our range. I don't know that it's going to be good, but I wonder.
I don't know, because that's where you got to remember when a raid team's formed, you always got your tanks because you only have 2, and hopefully you always have the same healers. It's the DPS that fluctuates. Whether you have you got 5 melee this time and 10 ranged, and then the next time, oh, we have 10 melee and 5 ranged. That really throws a difference in the way the fight goes. Sometimes to the point where you change up strategies.
Well,
we have done that before.
Let's not forget too that it's a little bit different with our group than it is with a lot of raid groups where we have a very fluid roster. Where it's not the same people every week. A lot of raid groups out there, they're guild raid groups. They've got the same people every week that are coming, or maybe that person's not there that week, but they're not like filling in necessarily another person, or maybe they have some second stringers on their roster or something that they're bringing in to replace somebody if somebody's missing that week. But we have a very fluid, very, very fluid raid group. There is some core players that are there every week, but there's plenty of folks who are there sometimes and other times not.
Oh yeah, and I certainly know I'm related to one of them who was pretty fluid, shall we say. But that being said, what I'm wondering is it more like, I think if a raid leader or say a tank called somebody out, like I don't think of myself as intimidating at all, but if you haven't been in our raid group much, you've been listening to the podcast, you come in and the tank goes, hey, you're stepping in the fire, stepping in the fire or something. I can see that being a little bit, off-putting and potentially intimidating. But if it's just the, melee DPS talking amongst themselves saying, well, we just got to make sure we avoid this, or we're running into this problem. As a group, they can problem solve with sort of a similar experience. I think that could be useful. I think better if it's happening spontaneously. I don't know that you can necessarily structure and build it in. But it feels like the healers kind of started to build that for themselves, and that's what I think was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Well, guys, we have really had a lot of fun tonight because we're running out of time. So I did want to get in my second, because I said there was 2 things that were good. The second thing is we got one of the first few times where we've got our 1,500 gold for completing our raid for our guild, and I think that was because Lorelei joined our guild.
Oh, I'm glad something good happened.
I swear to God, I
Yay.
think we were 1 person short from always getting it. And it's
Oh,
like,
and that was me.
man, we got 23 and we needed 24 people, and now we have 24 and we're getting that 1,500 gold.
We've always said you matter, and this
Yep.
just underlines that.
I felt really bad about leaving my guild. There were just reasons where it was time to do it.
Well,
So
my
there'll
wife
be no other perspective, unfortunately.
So you're not raiding with them anymore either, huh?
No, babes. I mean,
Or maybe?
we just had an issue where it's been mostly the core officers who have been there, who have been keeping things going for a long time, and I just decided raiding during the week was getting to be hard this year. So I just wanted to take a break from that, and I thought, well, you know what, I might as well just go ahead and make the move. I've been thinking about it since summer.
Yeah. Well, and
It'll
sometimes guilds are like diapers.
Yeah, so they just need to be changed. And then I've done it before.
Just a little change now and again. Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I thought
they
you
said
meant
I
they were
could come
poopy.
back and raid again. So I don't know. Maybe I'll see how many people they have going into the new one.
And
We were doing way too much pugging and not getting guild credit either. We only had maybe about 4 or 5 people in the guild running. So
Oh wow.
yeah, it was getting bad.
And you'll get to trade loot with people now. You'll actually be getting loot
know.
when you're raiding
Now
with
I'll
us.
actually get loot.
Yeah, you'll I'll get to see Lorelei get drops,
Oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah, got a rock.
Yeah. Awesome. So yes, thank you for joining the guild. Congratulations.
You're welcome. I have some more coming, but hopefully there'll be a Christmas discount on moving too.
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
I'm
my
still
wife
not
goes-
moving my tunes. I'm not
My
doing
wife
it.
goes, did you see that Lorelei joined the guild? And I'm like, yeah, because I promoted her this morning.
Oh, you did? I didn't see that.
Oh, is she chief bottle washer now?
yeah,
I
I
am. That's
promoted
good.
her
Oh,
right
I
out.
hold the
excellent.
bathroom
That's,
key.
every guild needs that role, I think.
What is it, $25 per tune or something
It
like that?
is. So I think I have 5 I want over there. So just because
See,
those
what-
are my profession tunes too. I said I'd leave a couple of tunes over in the old just to keep up with people.
See, it
All
would
right,
cost
well-
me like $300 to move my tunes over.
Oh.
I'm not
Yeah, I
doing
was like,
it.
I can't afford to do that right now.
Well, speaking of Lorelei, I hear the music. It's time for her pet battle minute.
Okay, I'll make it a quick one. There wasn't much going on this week with pet battle news, so I thought I'd just jump into one of the achievements. And if you've wanted to try the An Awfully Big Adventure achievement, Zufu's Pet Strategy Guide has a good rundown that I think I'm going to work on and try. I've got one pet tamer down and haven't done the others yet, so hopefully I'll get a little motivated. This is the one where you need your Elec plushie, which does absolutely nothing. It doesn't attack, it doesn't defend, it just stands there and looks cute and it falls over and squeaks. So you're going to have to go through with 2 level 25 pets. So check the auction house or check your tailors, they'll get you a plushie. Zufu gives you a list of pets that they suggest you bring along. And also they give you a list of what tamers you should go for first. And they suggest doing all the Celestial Tournament first. It takes about 3 weeks to cycle through those tamers. But do the Dark Moon Fair when it comes up. Pandaria has the largest group of tamers, so the guide shows you the fastest route to follow. And the other zones can be done in any order because the tamers are really spread out. So if you're into pet battles and you want this achievement, and I do because you get Trunks, a little baby Elec pet. So we all want that. So good luck and give it a try and let me know how you do.
Isn't it great that the wonderful world of websites has stuff like this? It'll show you the quickest route through. I mean, otherwise you'd have to figure it out for yourself.
Between Hazel and Zufu, they do a really good job. That's a lot of research and
Yes,
testing
a lot of
and
work.
playing
Yep.
and can't do it myself.
So, hats off to them. And then there's
Getting Themes with JobUi.
So, drop what you're doing. It's time to do the mechanics. I know, it's DPS we're talking about, right? But no, you need to do the mechanics. Because big numbers are great. I mean, they're really great. I love seeing big, juicy, big numbers, right? What DPS doesn't? But cut it out. Go do the mechanics. You know, when you're done with the mechanics, there's plenty of time to DPS. Because if you don't do the mechanics, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to kill other people. And if you're dead and they're dead, then they're not doing any DPS at all. So you're not even going to be on the charts really anymore. You're just going to trickle down to the bottom on that damage done meter. You'll be way down at the bottom, you know, with that 50 million, and everybody who stayed alive is up there at 200 and plus million, 300 million, and you're just way down the bottom dead because you didn't stop and do the mechanics. So really, you know, I love all you DPS out there, but do the damn mechanics. That's just how it needs to go, you know. So yeah, that's your DPS minute for this week, is do the mechanics. And if you're going to be raiding on the new raid in a couple of weeks, this isn't just for my raid group. This is for all you DPSers out there. Go watch some videos, go do some research, go learn the fights, and then do the mechanics, you know, because the numbers, they'll happen, but you got to do the mechanics. That's it. That's it for today.
awesome. And our tank and address.
What's wrong with tanking? What's wrong with tanking? What's wrong with tanking in a dress? What's wrong with tanking? What's wrong with tanking? What's wrong with tanking in a dress?
For this week's Come At Me a Tanking Minute, I'm doing There and Back Again, a tanking tale. Or, more dully, A, B, A, B, A, B, A. So we're talking through basic tanking patterns. So last week we talked about circles and rotating certain sections of it. Today, we're talking about really one of the most simple ones, and that's the A-B pattern. We've got a whole bunch of new content coming in the next week or two. And despite all the smoke and mirrors and shaking screens and funny little effects that you'll see on your screen, as a tank, you have to pretty quickly figure out what kind of fight is this going to be? What kind of positioning am I going to need to be doing? And it might just be your simple A, B, A, B, A, B. And that's where you have a boss in one spot, and then for some compelling reason or other, you need to go to another spot. And then back, and then forth, and then back, and then forth. So basically, it's a very simple dynamic, but if you don't know that's what you're doing, and you don't know you need to move or how much you need to move, that's something you got to figure out really quick to be effective in that particular fight. Now, if you don't know the basic camera angle trick, this is one of those things that's really stupendous for you as a tank. You have to face the boss. You turn your back on them, any things like dodge or block won't work, and you will get pummeled in a very bad way. So you have to be facing the boss, but you want to be ready to run in the other direction. Just take your camera angle, push your button, your left mouse button, rotate your screen around so that you are looking towards the other direction. And then the minute you have to move, you can use 2 buttons, slick as a whistle, very useful for especially that kind of A-B mechanic. So as you're getting into the new instances, figure out which kind of fight they are, and if it's a to B, get ready on those particular tricks. You've got a little variant on this theme. Something like Violet Citadel has, 5 basic spots, and you're kind of going from one spot to another spot to another spot, but it's still pretty much the same thing. It's more like A, B, C, D, E in some particular random variety, but it's just one spot to another spot to another spot. And that's tanking made easy, basic tanking patterns there and back again.
Awesome. And it's WFN News, Warcraft Stafford News. The command center is up next at the Broken Shores, and it has forces of order and well prepared. The weekly event is Legion Dungeon Event. Yay for dungeons. WoW tokens went up just a smidge. They're 176. They were 174 last week. So, as you know, Pilgrim's Bounty has already begun. So, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I would like to thank Charm for all of her beautiful music. Please go visit her website and her YouTube channel. Links are listed in the description below. Plus, BenSound at bensound.com. And Vincent Moretto for his inspirational heavy metal tavern music. I love it. All right. You guys, see you next week.
See ya.
See you, folks.
Night-night.
I kissed an orc and I liked it. The taste of his Bulgur chapstick. I kissed an orc just to try it. I hope my ally friends don't mind it. It felt so wrong, it felt so right. Don't meet up in love tonight.
And as you already know, Pilgrim's Bounty has already begun. It begins yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I
didn't
think
know.
it begins
Cool.
tomorrow.
Okay, but you got to think about the time when this broadcast comes out.
That's right. Sorry. Time warp. Senior moment.
That's all right. So yeah, it starts Monday. So it comes out, because my podcast doesn't come out till the evening. So as you know,